What's going on, Internet? Iron Jordan here. So, today, what we're going to be doing in our string of Yu-Gi-Oh videos is we're going to be talking about my predictions for the October 2021 ban list coming up very, very soon. We're about 2 weeks away from it, maybe a little bit more. Really depends on how Konami wants to handle it. But you've probably seen a bunch of videos already talking about this, that, or the other, and why some people think they should be banned or shouldn't be banned or should be limited or should be limited or whatever. I'm going to be doing the same thing, but I'm going to approach it slightly differently. One thing that I think that uh, ban list prediction videos do wrong is that they approach it from how strong they feel a card is or how strong they feel a deck is, whereas I approach things from a perspective of Konami wants to push product and what is the best way for Konami to push that product, because after all they are a business and business comes first. Now, in doing so, what they're going to be doing is probably hitting some decks that have been around for some time. But the other thing they're going to be doing is probably avoiding hitting decks that saw reprints in the Mega 10, the video of which we just put out, I think yesterday is when you guys would have seen that one. And if you haven't seen it, you can go check it out. Let me know what you think about that one. It's just we're really just going over the cards in the Mega 10, so there's not really a lot of substance there, but I'm giving my thoughts on like reprints and stuff. And the other thing that I think they're going to do is push for products being bought by unlimiting or banning or whatever some other cards, right? So the way that I want to approach this is look at the top 5 decks in the format, and first of all see what needs to be hit in those decks and what justifies hitting those cards monetarily from Konami's perspective. The first card that I want to start with is Eva in Drytrons. Drytron is, in my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinion, the best deck in the format. Now, it's followed pretty closely behind by Prank Kids and Tri Brigade, but I think that if left unchecked, Drytrons for sure put up the strongest board in Yu-Gi-Oh! And for this reason, I'm going to throw Eva in the banned category. You've got some people who don't know what they're talking about saying that Beatrice needs to be banned because Beatrice sends Eva and gets you a +2 and then sends Eva again to get you another +2. Why don't you just ban the card that is the card that's providing you the +2, which is Eva? I think that a couple of other people have come around on this opinion. I was pretty perturbed with Tombots, another YouTuber. I have no business being perturbed with him. He's much larger than me in follower size, that is. But I have Tombots originally said that he thinks that Beatrice would be the card to get banned, but I think that was his Drytron player's perspective kind of clouding the vision of how strong Eva is. Because if Eva's gone, what do you use Beatrice for? Realistically, that Mu Beta Fafnir doesn't do. You start pitching Drytrons to the grave, or maybe you start sending your rituals for some reason, despite the fact they haven't been summoned properly. So I don't know. I think that Eva is certainly the strength of this deck. I honestly think that Drytron could do without the entire Cyber Angel core and still be fine, be completely playable. A pure Drytron deck works. I've played it at locals. I've played it a lot online. It's very good. I actually have a deck profile for that if you want to see it some time ago on my channel. It doesn't quite set up the 6, 7 negate board that the current list can, but it's pretty consistently puts out 4, sometimes 5. And you are a little more empty-handed at the end of the turn, but it's a lot more fair. And I think that that's what direction the deck could go in eventually. I don't know. It really just depends because the Drytron stuff on its core is kind of like Tri Brigade stuff. It's very broken as a mechanical unit. The Drytrons just do something. They just do one mechanic better than any other, very much like Zoos do. It just does one mechanic better than any other archetype of cards in the game. Same thing goes for Tri Brigade, and we're actually about to touch on them, as I think Tri Brigades are the next deck on the list that needs to be addressed. I think they're probably the second best deck in the format, and it's also the deck that I have chosen as my competitive deck of the format. I've played a lot of different versions of this. I have mostly played the Lyralist version. However, I have transitioned into the Zoo Brigade version that most people have, and is probably just the better version. However, I do feel like because of the way that Tri Brigade works, that even if you banned the entire Zoo core and banned all the cards that they use, if you banned Revolt and all that other stuff, they would still have a very strong deck in the Lyralist version. So, in my opinion, looking at the Mega 10 cards that are getting reprinted, Tri Brigade Revolt is in that 10. So I'm thinking to myself, why would they limit Revolt, which is a secret rare, one of the chase cards of the set, because you want to bump those up from common to secret. I know I do. Why would you ban that or limit that if you've reprinted it? So the card that I think is actually going to get limited is going to be Fire Formation Tenki. I think that this is a inevitability anyway. People have been calling for it since Zeus came out, really back in like 2017. It's just the Rota for Beast Warriors. Now, obviously, Beast Warriors are not quite as good of an archetype as Warriors are. However, they are better right now because you have Tri Brigade and Zeus, and those are just better archetypes than anything Warriors have currently, right? So I think that this card will go to 1, and I think it will stay there for the rest of its lifetime. The next deck on the list is Prank Kids. I think that Prank Kids are probably they're the hardest deck for me to hit in this format because while they probably do need to take some hit, it's hard to hit their core pieces without making the deck much worse. However, I feel like if you limit Meow Meow Mew or even semi-limit it, I think that the deck loses a lot of its ability to go into the grind game, which is very important. Now, this is the deck on the list that I have the least amount of experience with, but I still think that it is very powerful and kind of frustrating to play against sometimes. And so I very much think that Meow Meow Mew is going to get limited to 1. Moving on, the next deck on the list for me is Dragon Link. Dragon Link has been powerful for a very long time, and I know a lot of people are very tired of playing against it. However, I bet you Dragon Link players are even more tired of getting their stuff hit, as Dragon Link has been addressed on some ban list every couple of months since it became a playable deck. And for this reason, I am leaving Dragon Link untouched. A lot of people are saying to hit seals. Some people are saying to hit tiding. I don't think that tiding ever needs to be hit. It's literally just Icarus attack or I can't remember what the other card's name is. But anyway, it's literally just that card, but for dragons. It's just very, very good. I think that if you ever touch the card in this deck, it would be maybe seals to 1, but I don't think it needs to be touched right now. I honestly, really, the only deck that I think is pressing that needs to be hit is Drytron. The other ones are kind of like, but I think that for the most part, you completely leave Dragon Link alone and it'll be just fine. It's a good deck, it's a solid deck, but it's not the best deck in the format. There's no reason to touch it. The next deck is going to be Shaddoll Invoked Dogmatica. A lot of people are calling for the banning of Winda. I do not think that this is a good idea. Now, I will say, out of all the Shaddoll cards that got reprinted in the Megatins, Winda did not receive one. It was one of the only, meta picks in that Shaddoll list that didn't get any, reprints. Now, this could be because Winda already has a bunch of reprints and doesn't need any more, but it could be because Konami is thinking about hitting it. Now, the other part of that deck that didn't get any reprints at all is the invoked stuff. There's no Alistair, there's no Invocation, there's no any of that. And so for that reason, I think that Magical Meltdown is going to be limited. I think this is a very good move, as this is the card that makes the deck very oppressive and hard to interact with. The other card that I think is really the problematic card outside of Winda, I don't really think Winda's a problematic card at all. People have been playing against Winda since 2015. But I think that outside of Winda, the card that's actually the problem in the Shaddoll Invoked Dogmatica variant is Nadir Servant. Nadir Servant is troublesome because it allows you to play Winda and Apclone and all these other cards without actually playing your Shaddoll core. I think that if you're playing a Shaddoll core, then there's no problem with having to hard summon Winda off of a Shaddoll Fusion or an El Shaddoll Fusion or even a Dogmatica, whatever. I can't remember what the name of the Despia card is that can summon it. But I think that Magical Meltdown for sure is the way to go, and we'll come back to some more of these cards here in a second. Now, that is all for the top 5 decks in the format. We're going to revisit these a little bit. So firstly, I think that Tenki is the first hit that gets hit in the Tri Brigade deck. I think that Revolt is on Konami's radar, as it is just returned from a different dimension, but it's searchable, and it gains you advantage, and it summons a guy that banishes non-targeting. And so that seems very, very good, but I think that Tenki is the kind of in-between hit of, oh, we'll see where the deck's at, and then, we'll go from there. I think the same thing happens for Magical Meltdown. I think those are the cards that are like, we'll see what happens to the deck after we, limit these cards and, take away some of the power, but without neutering them and stuff like that. I think that hitting 2 cards in each of these decks, because the format is in such a healthy place, I think that hitting too many cards is a very bad idea. But this is what I'm feeling for the meta decks going into October. Now, outside of that, unfortunately, we know that Crossout Designator is coming, and I think that spells the end of Called by the Grave. Called by the Grave has been a very important way to stop your opponent from hand trapping you ever since it was printed. and then it got semi-limited, I think, and then limited, and that's where it's been for a while. So Called by the Grave is an incredibly strong card, but I don't think Konami wants 3 Crossout Designator, 1 Called by the Grave, which is very unfortunate for budget players, but it's very nice for combo players because this can also hit Imperm, it can hit Nibiru, whereas Called by the Grave really can't. So yeah, I think that Called by the Grave is just gone. I'm unfortunately very sad about this because while I don't love Called by the Grave as a card, I like having some hand trap interaction. I just think Crossout Designator is a little too powerful, especially at 3. And I suspect Crossout Designator in a year from now will be in the same position that Called by is now, limited to 1. Next, we're going to Imperial Order. Get this card out of my format, please. Please. This card is the freest win card in the game. Like, the deck I'm playing competitively right now, Tri Brigade, doesn't even play that many spell cards, and I still hate this card. I hate this card with... I played this in that deck, and I hate it with an absolute passion. This card is completely unfair, completely broken. It just wins you games. Get it out of here. Whoever came up with this errata and thought that that was playable is just... Get them out of development. They don't need to be in card development. The next card we're going to talk about is Orchest Harporer. I think Orchest Harporer is coming to limited off the Forbidden list, and that is because they're reprinting Girsu, and so that's going to push people into playing Mech Knight Orchest or whatever the card is used for. And so because of this, I think that if you put Harporer back at 1, it helps sell the Megatons. So Harporer is going to be a coming to limited, in my opinion. And then the next thing that's going to be coming is Double Iris Magician coming to unlimited. This card really doesn't do anything. I think that it's completely fine going back to unlimited. Give Pendulum players some stuff back. I honestly think that they could have Joker back to 3 as well. But I don't, like I said, I don't want to do too much with this list. This is 8 changes. This is 8 changes with seals being untouched. This is 8 changes that I think will be relatively healthy for the format because I know that Konami, and honestly 8 is around the amount of changes that we get every ban list anyway. We don't typically get a bunch of kill the format, nuke to the format ban lists. They're not Bandai, who's putting out some banger ban lists. If I'm, hey, hey. But so yeah, this is what my list would look like. We'll come back to this after the ban list actually drops in a couple of weeks, and then we'll see what we got right, what we got wrong, and what needs to be going forward. So for now, what do you guys think about this ban list? Am I being a little too biased towards my favorite decks? Am I being too hard on your favorite deck? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.